Hello and welcome to another revision tutorial by MrMcMillanREvis, making revision easier. This is the fifth and final video in a series on Edexcel GCSE RS, Unit 3.2, Matters of Life and Death. In this video I'm going to look at world poverty. Firstly, let's deal with two main questions. What is poverty and what causes it? Poverty is a word that describes the characteristic of being poor, meaning to lack sufficient resources to sustain a reasonable quality of life. We can distinguish between absolute poverty and relative poverty. A person is said to be in absolute poverty when they are unable to provide for their most basic needs, such as food, water, shelter, and healthcare. A person is said to be in relative poverty when they are poor in relation to the majority of people within their community, although they might not necessarily be in absolute poverty. There are many reasons why serious poverty exists in certain places around the world. In less economically developed countries, or LEDCs, significant numbers of people live in absolute poverty. So what causes poverty? Many of the poorest countries of the world have suffered long and damaging civil wars. War is expensive and uses up valuable government resources, as well as destroying infrastructure and taking lives, all of which makes it difficult for the economy to grow and the country to develop. It is no coincidence that many of the world's poorest countries also have a higher number of natural disasters. Natural disasters such as earthquakes often destroy infrastructure like roads and power supplies, which make it difficult for businesses to thrive and for the economy to grow. Disasters like floods or droughts also hinder a country's agricultural ability to grow crops and basic resources. They also kill large numbers of people who might otherwise be contributing to the country's development. Most LEDCs have borrowed money from wealthier countries, but the interest rates at which the money is borrowed means that these poorer countries can easily become stuck in debt, often owing more than they originally borrowed. For example, in the 1970s Chile borrowed $3.9 billion, but by 1982 they had paid back $12.8 billion and still were not debt-free. The global economic system is built on the principle of free trade, but this tends to disadvantage poorer countries. Wealthier countries are able to create laws that protect traders in their own countries, preventing poorer economies from becoming competitive. The fair trade movement attempts to create a system where there is more price consistency across the globe. Most poorer countries do not have effective healthcare systems, so the impact of viral diseases, like HIV/AIDS, is more damaging. Diseases like this stop people being able to work and contribute to the economy, and instead become a drain on resources. In addition to poor healthcare, poor sanitation and water supplies also make this problem worse. We now move to the second part of this video. How does a Catholic Christian respond to poverty? The Edexcel exam board expects you to be able to write about one Catholic Christian organisation that works to promote development in poorer countries. For the purpose of this video, I've chosen to focus on CAFOD. CAFOD is the name for the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development. So what do they do? CAFOD has four main areas of focus. Firstly, sustainable development. There is a popular phrase, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but teach him how to fish and he feeds himself for a lifetime. This underpins the principle of a sustainable development. CAFOD runs projects that in the long term will allow poorer countries to work their way out of poverty. Examples might include opening health clinics, training health workers, running education programs, or setting up saving schemes. Secondly, disaster relief. CAFOD is directly involved with the relief efforts that begin when any major natural disaster occurs. In this short period of time after a disaster, whether it be natural or man-made, there is a short-term need to provide food and shelter to those affected. For example, in the autumn of 2013, CAFOD has been working in Syria to help the humanitarian crisis, which has occurred as a result of the civil war. Thirdly, education. CAFOD spends about 5% of its budget on educating people in more economically developed countries, like the UK, on the need to promote development overseas. This hopefully raises awareness and therefore funds which can then be spent directly on overseas development. This includes working in schools and churches in the UK, educating people about the work it is doing overseas. Fourthly, lobbying. CAFOD works to lobby governments in more economically developed countries to promote policies that support long-term development, as well as challenging laws that do not promote fair trade. Government laws often can make more significant changes than the work of individuals, and so CAFOD works to lobby the UK government to adopt policies that support development in LEDCs. So why does CAFOD do what it does? As a Catholic organisation, CAFOD is motivated by Christian teachings. Firstly, the teachings of Jesus. Jesus taught that the second most important commandment was to love your neighbour as yourself. He also used the parable of the sheep and the goats to encourage his followers to seek to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and comfort the lowly. Secondly, the teachings of the Church. The Catholic Church has consistently emphasised the importance of serving the poor. In fact, the Catholic Church is the single biggest provider of charitable services in the whole world. The document Deus Caritas Est called on Catholics to show their faith, which becomes active through love, echoing the sentiment of the Apostle James, who said faith without actions was dead. Thirdly, there is the concept of stewardship. The Bible teaches Catholics the idea of stewardship, which means that all human beings have a responsibility to look after creation and share its resources fairly and equally. And this ties in with the final reason, which is social justice. The Church emphasises that poverty and injustice are often connected. If we really want to have world peace, then we must first have justice. This is to ensure that all people are treated fairly and equally and have access to their most basic human rights. Thanks for watching. I've been Mr. McMillan. That's the end of this series. For the other parts, click the links. If you have found this useful, please give the video a thumbs up and follow me on Twitter. You can also download an audio version of this video from iTunes so that you can listen to it on your MP3 device.